Okay, so just to finish off the previous tutorial, so looking at the difference P paragraph now. So a difference between Freud's study and Baron-Cohen's study is that they use a different research method. So a really obvious difference between those two studies there was the research method that they use. So if you remember, obviously the Freud study was a case study, which is what I then go on to say. So with the difference, we need to just define each of those particular areas now, don't we? So the Freud study uses a case study where one individual is studied in great depth. Okay, so that tells us about Freud's study, whereas Baron-Cohen's study, on the other hand, uses a quasi-experiment where a group of people are tested in control conditions, but the independent variable is naturally occurring. So if you think about what I've done there, we've said what the difference is, then we've said what's different about Freud. Okay, so Freud used a case study and then explained a little bit further about what case study is. And then with Baron-Cohen's study, we've said, okay, so how did they go about it? And then we've explained what, in this particular case, a quasi-experiment is. All we then need to do is to do our final couple of examples. So for example, Freud studied the development of a single participant, little Hans, a young Austrian boy, through conversations and letters with the boy's father over 2 years. This is a case study design. So all that there is just a little bit of context, just to bring that back to the idea of this being a case study and just explaining why it's a case study. So just a little bit of detail about the actual study itself. And the final thing there is we bring obviously Baron-Cohen in there. So however, Baron-Cohen used a quasi-experiment design that researched looked at the ability of 3 groups to detect emotion using the eyes task in order to determine deficits in theory of mind. And these groups were an autism Asperger's group, a normal group, and a Tourette syndrome group. Therefore, the independent variable was not manipulated by the investigator in the study. There you go. Okay, so we've got a difference paragraph. Research method. What do we mean by a research method in this particular case? Well, the research method for Freud was a case study. Baron-Cohen's was a quasi-experiment. Description and explanation about why Freud's study was a case study, and then exactly the same with Baron-Cohen. That's a lot. I hope you found that that useful. Sorry, I had to split over 2 videos, yeah. Any issues with it? Any questions you want to ask me? Then please do so. Okay. Speak soon then.